Hello everyone and welcome back. Since it is officially the springtime, I thought it would be nice to recommend you some of my favorite books that I feel like are perfect to read during the spring season. I love picking books that fit the season that I'm in, and so I thought that if you are like that, then I will recommend you some of my favorite springtime books. So if any of these pique your interest, hopefully you can add them to your spring TBR. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you about these wonderful books. This first book I really do think is the perfect springtime read, and that is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I adore this story. I read it years ago and I really would love to reread it. It is just so fantastic. The imagery is beautiful. It is set in this wonderful secret garden, and I will read you the inside flap because I feel like they describe it very well. On the back also, this is the beautiful Pan Macmillan edition. You guys know how much I love these, but the back says it was the sweetest, most mysterious looking place anyone could imagine, and that's talking about the secret garden. So it says, when Mary Lennox is orphaned, she is sent from her home in India to live with her uncle at Misselthwaite Manor on the Yorkshire moors. She arrives as a sour-faced, sickly, and ill-tempered little girl, bewildered by her surroundings and desperately lonely. One day she discovers a way into a secret abandoned garden. With the help of local lad Dickon and her poorly cousin Colin, they set about restoring the garden. This magic tale of transformation has enchanted both children and adults since its publication in 1911. It feels like in the springtime when you see those first sprouts coming up out of the cold ground, and it's like everything is starting to thaw. So in the beginning of the book, Mary is very much like that cold ground, and then over time she starts to thaw and she starts to bloom, just like the garden. And it is such a beautiful story, beautifully written, and the imagery, I think, is the thing that really sticks out to me the most about this book, and what makes it so perfect for spring is it's this secret garden that gets transformed, as well as Mary really goes through a transformation. And it is one of my favorites, and if you haven't read it, I cannot recommend it enough. This next book I also always associate with the springtime, and that is Emma by Jane Austen. This is again another beautiful Pan Macmillan. On the back of this one it says, Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition. That is the first line of this book, and it is so fantastic. And the back also we have a beautiful painting of a garden. So this is about Emma Woodhouse, who basically is a matchmaker, and she is very confident, and she likes to insinuate herself into other people's lives and make matches between people and have people fall in love and play Cupid for the social circle that she is a part of. I think, again, like The Secret Garden, the imagery, the story of falling in love and first love and romance, and I just feel like this book I definitely associate with the springtime. And when I was making this list, I was asking myself, do I associate all Jane Austen books with the springtime? And I definitely don't, because Northanger Abbey in particular is very much I associate with the autumnal season, because it's very gloomy and there are gothic tones to it. So I definitely think that this in particular, out of all Jane Austen books, I would say, at least the ones that I've read, feels very springtime-esque. I think another reason why I associate this with the springtime is because of the movie adaptation from 2020. The colors are so pastel and there's so many flowers, and in one of the last scenes between Emma and another character, Mr. Knightley, they are standing under this gigantic horse chestnut tree. And horse chestnut trees are one of my favorite trees. It's like top two between horse chestnut and willow trees. But yes, I just associate it so much with the springtime. So if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it. Also watch the movie, because the movie is absolutely beautiful and fantastic and perfect for this time of year. The next book is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I love Virginia Woolf so much, and I think out of all of her books, this one reminds me the most of spring. The scenery, the descriptions, also Virginia Woolf's writing feels very, I don't know why, it just feels like spring to me. The back says, Mrs. Dalloway captures the events of one June day in London. Again, like June, it's perfect for like spring, almost summer. Moment by moment, as different lives collide. Clarissa Dalloway, the glamorous wife of an MP, is preparing for a party she is giving that evening, and remembering those she once loved. In another part of the city, Septimus Smith, who is my favorite character from this book, is being driven mad by shell shock from the war. As the day draws to an end, different worlds, past, present, and future, are brought together. It is such a beautiful book encompassing one whole day, but we kind of go back in time and we have different people where their lives kind of connect, and it's just so beautiful. If you are new to Virginia Woolf, her writing does take a little bit to get used to, but once you are in her worlds, in her words, in her writing, it's just so captivating and beautiful, and she just feels like spring to me. This next one is another quintessential springtime read for me. I read it in the springtime and I associate it so much with the spring, and that is A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. This is such, again, a scenic, beautiful, romantic book. The scenery is gorgeous, the descriptions are beautiful. It is set in Florence and in England, and it's just such a gorgeous book. Also, the movie adaptation with Helena Bonham Carter is also beautiful. The scenery, again, is gorgeous. Same thing with the adaptation of Mrs. Dalloway. The back says, "In a sunny tale of love and deliberation, Lucy Honeychurch," I love her last name. I don't know if you agree, but it just reminds me of spring. So Lucy Honeychurch is transformed by the characters she meets on her first trip to Italy. Flamboyant romantic novelist Eleanor Lavish, the Cockney Signora, lower class Mr. Emerson, and most of all his passionate, unconventional son. Returning to her traditional home and family, Lucy finds herself torn between the intensity of her experiences in Italy and the repressed morals of English middle-class society. And then it says sun-drenched and optimistic. Oh, it's just like perfect springtime feeling. Exploring many issues at the heart of Edwardian life. This is a brilliantly witty love story, and I could not agree more. It is so fantastic and perfect for the springtime, or the summer, kind of in between. Speaking of one of my favorite trees being the willow tree, we have The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is the beautiful Penguin Deluxe Edition. I love this book so much. It's so funny and wacky and quirky. We are following these animals who have personalities, so they are anthropomorphized, and they are just going about their lives, and havoc ensues, especially by Toad. And it reminded me of Charles Dickens, when Charles Dickens takes something very ordinary and makes it extraordinary, and he brings objects to life, he brings things to life. And one of my favorite things as a reader and a writer is to make objects that don't have personality and have a voice. And that's exactly what Kenneth Grahame did in this book. And again, it's just the perfect scenery and atmosphere. It just feels perfect for the springtime. So yes, that's why I'm recommending it. The next one is one of my all-time favorite books from one of my all-time favorite authors, and that is Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. This is a book that I have loved since I was a child, and I love it more and more and more the older that I get, and every time I reread it, I just fall in love with it more. So if you read this as a kid and haven't read it since then, I highly recommend rereading it. It is such a fantastic story. It just encompasses so much of humanity and our connection with animals and our connection to nature, and it's beautiful and wonderful. And E.B. White, there's a fantastic audiobook that he actually narrates Charlotte's Web himself, and his voice is so soothing and comforting, and it kind of feels like you're listening to like a grandparent or a loved one read you a children's tale. It feels like when you were a kid and you were read stories to by the people that love you. That's how that audiobook feels, and I love it so much. And yeah, this story just feels like a hug. It just feels like a wonderful springtime hug. This next one is another favorite. Of course, I'm going to recommend you guys my favorite books, obviously. So the next one is Upstream by Mary Oliver. This is an essay collection by my favorite poetess, Mary Oliver. She writes about nature so beautifully. The way that she expresses herself is breathtaking, and the way that she views nature, views the natural world, views plants and animals and trees and dogs, and just the way that she views the world is so wonderful. And you can't help but see the world differently after you read her work, read her essays and her poems. I highly recommend her poetry, of course, but this is her essay collection. And it's just so fantastic. I think it's a great place to start with Mary Oliver. This is where I started with Mary Oliver, and then I got into her poetry. Though I had read some of her poems, but not an actual collection yet. There's a quote on the back, and it says, "I had to go out into the world and see it and hear it and react to it before I knew at all who I was, what I wanted to be." Just please read this. Please read this. Oh my god, it is incredible. If you haven't, please do it. This next one is once again another favorite. Are we shocked? Are we shocked? Carolyn's recommending all of her favorite books. And it is Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. Again, another beautiful, scenic, stunning book. The imagery is gorgeous. The story is gorgeous. The movie adaptation is also gorgeous with Alexis Bledel, who played Rory Gilmore in Gilmore Girls, and she plays Winifred in Tuck Everlasting. This is another book where I feel like I don't want to tell you too much, but I will read you the back. So it says, "What if you could live forever? Is eternal life a blessing or a curse? That is what young Winnie Foster must decide when she discovers a spring on her family's property whose water grants immortality." She also meets a family called the Tucks that play a very important role in her life, but that's all that I want to say. So it's just so gorgeous, perfect for the springtime. This next book, I couldn't decide whether it reminded me more of spring or summer, but I think I'm going to recommend it nonetheless. I do associate with spring, and that is Circe by Madeline Miller. Also, this cover I feel like is so springy and summery. This is a retelling about Circe from Greek mythology. Madeline Miller is such a fantastic writer. She specializes in Greek mythology retellings. I love the Song of Achilles. I love Circe. I just recently read her short story Galatea, and I loved that as well. Her writing is so gorgeous and lyrical and beautiful and poetic, and there are a few books where I feel like the writing feels like it's like blooming off of the pages. It's like the words turn into flowers. This is one of those books. I feel like all of these books are those kinds of books. So the inside flap says, "In the house of Helios, god of the sun and mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. But Circe has neither the look nor the voice of divinity, and is scorned and rejected by her kin. Increasingly isolated, she turns to mortals for companionship, leading her to discover a power forbidden to the gods, witchcraft." Oh, it's so great. There's more, but I think that's all that I want to say. This is the beautiful UK edition. This was one of those cases where I couldn't help but order the UK edition from Waterstones because it's just so beautiful. The last book I have to tell you about is The Last Tree, A Seed of Hope by Luke Adam Hawker. He is one of my favorite contemporary illustrators and artists at the moment, and he specializes in these beautiful fine line ink illustrations. And this is a story about a young girl going into a museum in a world where trees no longer grow. They no longer exist and they are a thing of the past. And it's about her kind of discovering the beauty of trees and the importance of trees and sort of helping to bring them back. It's a beautiful, beautiful story about our connection to nature and how important nature is and how important trees are. And the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. Woo! Oh, my Hatchard's receipt just fell out. I bought this when I was in London with my boyfriend, and we were visiting London and we went to Hatchard's, and that's where I bought this book. So it is just so gorgeous, beautifully illustrated. Oh, yeah, look at that. So those are all of the books that I wanted to tell you guys about. I hope that you enjoyed this video and maybe you got some book recommendations, or if you've read any of these, maybe reread them in the springtime. I really want to reread The Secret Garden now. I actually really want to reread all of these books. I'm getting so excited for spring reading. I love the spring. I think it is my favorite season because it's not too hot, it's not too cold. You're finally appreciating all of the flowers. It's just so special. Anyway, I will stop blabbing now. Definitely let me know what books you're planning to read in spring, or what books you recommend to read in spring. What do you think are the perfect springtime books for you? I would love to know. I would love all of your recommendations, of course. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you very soon in another video. As always, happy reading. I don't think I do because... Hey.
Hey. Oh, hey. Sorry, I can call you off then.
That's okay. Alright, I'll let you know when I'm done.